It does, perhaps even more so than ever. There are two fundamental questions that have burned at the center of humankind's quest to really understand what it is to be human. And those questions are, where did we come from and where are we going? Our current answers come from science and religion. And unfortunately, these answers don't usually agree with each other. For example, Adam and Eve versus evolution, or the Genesis story versus Big Bang. And what Origin talks about is how the differences in these answers have created a disconnect in society. And the premise is really that these battles between science and religion have reached a fever pitch and have really reached a point of no return. I have always been fascinated in the very old and the very new, the ancient and the modern. And these questions really deal with the absolute most ancient question of where do we come from and the most modern question of where are we going. Always. My parents have always taught me to ask a lot of questions, to be curious. When I was growing up, there was no question I wasn't allowed to ask. And it was kind of funny, you know, with Da Vinci Code, I asked what I thought was a pretty simple question. What does it mean for humankind if Jesus Christ is not literally the Son of God? That was a question I was allowed to ask in my household. So when I asked it in a book and everybody was upset, that was very, very surprising to me. So my parents taught me to be curious. Yeah, there is a lot of art in Origin. Traditionally, in the other books, Langdon has found himself in the world of Renaissance art, religious iconography, a world in which he's very comfortable. He's an expert. In Origin, however, he is entrenched in the world of modern art, something he knows very little about, and he's a little bit of a fish out of water, but through the story, he begins to develop more of an understanding and appreciation of modern art, which, as a writer, I did too, researching this book. Sure. When you're a creative person, whether you are a composer, a painter, a writer, all you have as a guidepost for your creativity is your own taste. You create the music, the painting, the writing that you personally like, and then you just hope other people's will share your taste. Origin is very much a thriller. You have all of the usual Langdon secrets and codes and symbols and art and history and a big chase that all takes place in 24 hours. There is a really fun modern twist to this book, which I'm going to keep a secret right now, but I sure hope readers enjoy it. Well, as I said, I've been very interested in the very ancient and the very modern. Spain has this rich religious tradition that's very, very old, but they also have a grand vision for the future. They innovate in science and technology, so it seemed a perfect place to set a book where I was dealing with these themes. Also, modern art. The most famous modern art museum in the world is in Bilbao, and that's actually where the novel starts, in the Guggenheim there. And I also have a very close personal connection with Spain. I lived there numerous times throughout my life. It was actually the first country I ever visited outside of the U.S. I've been back there 11 times, more than any other country. Although the Netherlands is getting close, I've been here a lot too. But I'm a big fan of Spain, and it was a lot of fun to set this book there. There's a lot of technology in Origin, the very ancient and the very modern. The amazing thing about technology that a lot of us don't realize is that it is growing exponentially. Every new piece of technology becomes a tool to create new technology. So we have this exponential acceleration of science and technology. And what I talk about in the book and what I personally am afraid for is whether or not our ethics and our philosophy and our morals can keep pace with technology. Technology is now posing questions that we have only now begun to imagine. And will we have the maturity philosophically and morally to answer those questions correctly? Technology will have an enormous effect on philosophy. The ancient Greeks had to look back centuries to find somebody who was considered an ancient, a different culture. We now look back one generation to our parents, to a culture that grew up with none of the things that we take for granted. No internet, no cell phones, no satellites, and they are the ancients now. We are different people than our parents were because of technology. I personally believe that some of the new technologies, including artificial intelligence, will have such an enormous effect on religion that literally within the next 2 decades, we will not recognize human spirituality. It's kind of interesting because one of the great attractions of religion is that it remains unchanged. It is that it was the same today as it was 200 years ago, and I think those days are really coming to an end. Well, dialogue and discussion and understanding each other is always important in the world, but now more than ever, the world has become very, very small. And it is absolutely critical that we engage in dialogue with other people, especially people whose ideas are not our own. Living with an open mind is really the only way, I believe, that our species will survive. If I'm not at my desk by 4 a.m., I feel like I've missed the absolute best writing hours of the day. I work with no distractions. That's why I get up so early. I work in a space that is away from the house. It has no email, no phone, and really isolating myself and removing distractions, getting up early. It's all part of my personal commitment to writing a novel. My inspirations come from combining the very ancient with the very modern. They always have. In Angels and Demons, I mixed the Vatican with antimatter. In Inferno, I mixed Dante with sort of biochemical engineering and population control. In Origin, the inspiration really came from a piece of music that mixed the very old and the very new. It's called the Missa Charles Darwin. And this piece of music is in the ancient style of a Christian mass, but with the very modern lyric of Charles Darwin. And this piece really inspired me to combine the very old and very new in this concept of origin. It is a piece by one of my very favorite classical composers, and that composer happens also to be my brother. So I'm very proud of him and also grateful for the inspiration. As always, I hope my readers have a great time reading the book, that they find it thrilling, that they learn something from the book, maybe develop a new appreciation for modern art, which I know I did writing the book, and above all, that it creates dialogue, creates questions, and gets people talking about important topics. It's been a real thrill to research the book around the world, and a great thrill to be back here in the Netherlands, which I love so much, and thanks for having me.